Hey everyone, this is Jen and you're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live and manage with your borderline personality disorder or your complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or you will learn to become more effective at handling your emotions and navigating your life if you consider yourself to be a highly sensitive person. My goal is to share my wisdom, insight, experience, research, and therapeutic processes to help you realize your goals, whatever they may be. I am not a psychologist or a therapist. However, I can answer one important question that most of those folks cannot, which is, what is it like to live with borderline personality disorder? I was diagnosed over 20 years ago, and I believe that I have lived with the disorder for 30 years. In that time, I have done about a half a dozen rounds of DBT. I've enrolled in group therapy, one-on-one therapy. I have produced YouTube videos. I have read books. I have every workbook. You get the idea. I'm pretty committed. And while having a therapist is incredibly important to your recovery and is not something that I could have not done without in mine, I mean, really, you must try to enroll in DBT or get a psychologist that specializes in personality disorders, specifically borderline. My aim here is to share insights that those therapists cannot offer you. They just simply don't know what it's like to live with the disorder, and therefore they can be pretty limited in the way they're able to relate to you and give some tips and advice. And so that's where I come in. If you're a family member or a spouse or just someone interested in positive solution-based approaches to recovery, you are also in the right place. And there's a video list just for you entitled Vids for the Family, Tips and Tools. If this all sounds good to you, please hit subscribe and the bell below so you never miss a beat. I produce anywhere from 3 to 5 videos each week, all something new. Let's get going on today's topic. So today I want to talk about something that you hear a lot about in YouTube videos, you hear a lot about in the psychology world of things, and that is the favorite person. What is the favorite person? Why do we develop these favorite person relationships, and what can you do to avoid the conflict and problems that can come with these favorite person situations? So let's talk a little bit about that. So when I was in therapy and things like that, I never, or DBT, and the last DBT course I did was about 4 years ago now. It's not really something that's in the literature. Like, there is no favorite person chapter. It's not covered in any of the DBT modules. And so it's never really kind of explained. You hear a little bit about it in, like, Dr. Daniel Fox talks about it. You hear about it in other YouTube channels. You can kind of get it a little bit from articles, but it's not really ever discussed in a scientific scope of what a favorite person is. So let's break it down and kind of where it comes from. Those of us with borderline personality disorder, and most likely CPTSD, have a predilection to splitting, or what we call black and white thinking. And that is the extreme thinking. You know, I love you or I hate you. You're my best friend, or you've let me down and therefore I don't ever want to talk to you again. You know, I trust you and you're my boyfriend, but you weren't where you said you were going to be, and therefore I don't feel like I can trust you anymore. These are extreme modalities of thinking. And so because those of us with borderline also have a sense of loss and a feeling of abandonment, and one of the criteria in the DSM is attempts to escape real or imagined abandonment, you kind of have this pressure cooker going of anxiety when it comes to friends, people leaving you, and the ability to trust others. So what happens out of that? Well, a couple things. For one, you kind of tend to narrow your scope of who you let into your life. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Remember, no black and whites here. But you also don't want to take who you let into your life to an extreme. So what I am saying is that it is good to be judicious about who you let in and who you decide to interact with, and the types of people that you develop relationships with, and that you take these relationships slow. You don't just kind of, you know, put it all out on the table and expect them to be your be-all end-all. People have to earn your trust in increments. On the flip side, you don't want to let everybody in your life, like not everybody is your friend, you know, and Facebook is a good example of that. Oh, I have 500 friends. Do you? Are they really your 500 friends? Would they come to your house for dinner? Would they help you move a couch? Okay. So what you then have, in addition to this, is oftentimes people with emotional dysregulation disorders like BPD, and people who didn't grow up in environments that were conducive to proper socializing. So for me, my parents argued a lot, or they were fighting a lot, or my mom was in psych wards, then you didn't really get a chance to have a lot of people come over and develop these friendships. So where does that leave you? Well, kind of trying to figure it out all on your own as an adult. So therefore, your idea of what a friend should look like and how much trust you should give them and what that relationship dynamic should look like can be kind of pretty narrowed or unrealistic because you just haven't had enough exposure to this. And so because making friends can be something really important to you, I mean, it's important to me, and the idea of loss or losing a friendship, the abandonment, you then get into this conundrum of, okay, I've got a friend and now I must keep this friend. And so what happens is you kind of get a little bit obsessed with them, and you become narrowed, which means now you are not widening your friendship pool. You're spending most of your time or your interaction with one person. You are not trying to meet other people. And for me, kind of something that I have often heard myself say is, well, and this comes from not having a lot of friends and being afraid of not having friends. One thing that I've heard myself say is, well, as long as I have like one or two friends, like that's good enough for me. You know, if all I need in life is one or two friends. And I think when I say this, it's not because I only want one or two friends. It's because that I feel that I don't have enough friends. And so that if one of these friends walks into my life, that will be good enough for me. Oh, finally, like a friend's arrived, yay, right? Now I can have a best friend. Like now I can like share relatable stories that like people tell me about their friends going with them to Mexico on vacation, and oh, my friend from college from 20 years ago, right? Which is not something that I really have. So you tend then, when you get this new person in your life, to focus all your energy, put a lot of expectation on them. And then they become sort of put in this sticky place because now you are unloading all of your life to them. So they are your go-to person for the good stuff. And then they're the person that you go to vent, and the person for the crises, and the person that you're calling. And that's a lot of pressure on someone. I mean, even in the scope of having a boyfriend or girlfriend, that could be a lot of expectation. And so then what happens is you may find that now where you have this favorite person has become, this object of your affection has become, you will see that, you know, it feels too much for them, or they begin to feel like this is unnatural or it's unhealthy. They may feel overwhelmed. They may feel like there's a bit of obsession going on. There's too much enamorment, or that the friendship is even moving at a too fast of a pace. You know, I've had romantic relationships where I'm like, oh, that really moved too fast, or like the guy would say, yeah, that moved too fast. But then I've also had some friendships where I felt like, well, that moved too fast. And just as I've had romantic relationships develop, crash and burn and dissolve within 2 months, I've had friendships go the same route. So you may find then that this favorite person then becomes too overwhelmed, they retreat, right? And then now you are in this self-fulfilled abandonment phase because now they're too uncomfortable. So this is my theory to you after living with a disorder and being in dozens of types of cycles of relationships like this. This is my insight to you on why, where the favorite person comes from, what it is, why it happens, and then what can ultimately be the dissolution or the downfall of this. I mean, think of all your favorite persons, okay? How many of them are still around? Or how long do those relationships end? Do you cycle through a favorite person every 2 months, every 6 months, every year, right? Okay. So now that I've talked a little bit about where I believe the favorite person comes from and how it develops and what kind of the psychology that is going on in the borderline's mind, I'd like to talk to you about ways to choose some healthier options and expand your circle. So let's keep going. So I've done several videos now on the idea of friendship, and I've also created a friendship playlist. So I'll put that up there so you can check that out at your leisure. And all of the ways to recovery through borderline, whether that's behavior modification or the introduction of skills and the implementation in your life of skills, or whether that is, you know, how your relationships develop, it all comes down to one thing, and that is taking your time. There are no overnight solutions to anything in life. I mean, extreme situations, sure, but there are no overnight fixes, not to your disorder, not to your problems, not to your money troubles, not to your friendships, not to anything. It all takes time, okay? And so meeting new people and vetting them that they're healthy and that these are people that you want to hang out with takes time, but it's worth it. Why? So you're not letting in people that are going to disappoint you or that are going to confirm your confirmation bias. I've talked a lot about confirmation bias. I'm actually going to develop a video about confirmation bias. And if you let in all of these people into your floodgates, and let's say you let in 50 people to your party, okay, your friendship party, and 49 of them turn out to be people that disappoint you, or they're duds, or you don't get along, or there's just no like connection, then you're going to start confirming this bias of, I don't have any friends, people don't like me, etc. When the reason why your friendships may not be working out has nothing to do personally with who you are, or, you know, you're borderline. It could just be like you don't get along, or you're not compatible, or there's something going on with them, or they're not attentive, or whatever the case may be. There's a dozen reasons of why your friendship may not work out. And so what you're going to do instead is you're going to take things slowly. You're going to get to know people over a length of time. People reveal themselves slowly. They don't reveal everything out at once. You're not going to know somebody fully for probably a year. And you're really going to start to see their true colors come out probably at that 3 to 6 month mark, okay? So, you know, friendships go through a honeymoon phase just like regular relationships do, just like your job relationships. You know, you get a new job, you're like, everything is so great. And then after 3 months, you're like, oh my God, that bitch in HR, right? So you're going to want to take your time. And then my second tip is that if you find that you are putting too much attention on a favorite person, or you're spending more one-on-one time with a favorite person, then reduce that, you know? Disconnect yourself from the idea that you must text them every day, or that you must show up and interact with them every day, or that there must be a certain amount of texts or a certain amount of phone calls or FaceTimes that go through to validate your security in the relationship, right? Instead, if you find yourself feeling that anxiety that comes with, I haven't heard from them, do they still like me? Are we still going to be friends? Instead of acting on that fear, which, by the way, they're most likely going to be sense you acting out on that fear, okay, because that'll come through in the way you communicate with them. Instead, distract yourself. You know, with anything, I always recommend do something when you're in a regulated state of mind. Make a decision when you're in a regulated state, not when you're in a heightened emotional dysregulated state, okay? So get in the habit then of regulating yourself and being like, I'm okay if I don't talk to this person today. This does not mean that they are not my friend anymore. This is an object constancy thing, right? So object constancy is that this Gatorade bottle, okay, it's still here even though you don't see it. And so that's object constancy, the ability to know that something will still be there even though right now it's not in your frame of view and it's not in your presence, right? It's still here. Now, of course, people are going to disappoint you. Sometimes people will ghost you. Sometimes people won't show up. Bye. Goodbye. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. You must still keep in this mindset of, I'm a good person, I'm doing the best I can, and if there is a room for improvement or something that you want to take a look at that you think may be problematic, okay, improve on that. But that doesn't mean that you're going to kick yourself down. And then the third thing is to remind yourself that you're learning as you go, okay? Nobody's perfect. And then the fourth thing I want you to consider is, what is the difference between a best friend and a favorite person? I don't know. Is there a difference? You know, like, I don't actually have an answer to this. You know, I think that if you lined up on a list the characteristics of a favorite person and the characteristics of a best friend, you know, talk every day, you share everything, you've known them the longest, etc. I think that you would find a lot of similarities. I think the distinguishing factor from a favorite person is that favorite persons in relation to friendships tend to feel more enmeshed, a little bit unhealthy, and that they're the only source of friendship that you go to, where a best friend may be a really good friend, but you also have 10 other friends that you talk to. My name's Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. We have been talking about the favorite person, where it comes from, why it happens, and how you can achieve healthy relationships. Until I see you next time in everything that you do, please remain effective, be effective, and please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. Buttons right below. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you next time.